Alright YouTube, so as you can see, new wheel day for the van. I'm taking the 35s off, putting 33s on, and well, technically they're 285, what are they, 285-70s? Let's see, yeah, 285-70 R17s. I went with a more modern 17-inch rim because I wanted a fifth wheel spare, a full-size spare. The spare that's on here would never work. It's a 245-60, I think, R16. So these are 16.5-inch rims, but I like the retro drilled out look of the holes. So I got the same, basically the same rim. It's a Pro Comp 17x9. I think it's almost identical. I mean, pretty damn close. Almost the exact same rim. Just this one's matte black, powder coat. This one's high polish. I'm getting rid of all the high polished parts. I'm going to be going with a black belt line all the way across where the existing black is, and then everything above is going to be white. Still contemplating what I'm going to do with the topper, but eventually I'll end up rhino lining. Well, not rhino, that's a brand name. Raptor. I'm going to end up Raptor lining the whole thing. So gonna have to do a custom rear bumper. They have some weld it yourself kits that I'm going to be putting on a custom tire carrier on the back. So yeah, this is where the van sits right now. The front end, as you can tell, new springs, new shocks to accommodate the drop in height. I'm converting everything back to stock. I've already tried doing a lot of rust remediation, ground down a lot of the rust, getting it prepped for primer. You can see I've primered some of it. So anyways, I'm gonna get the 33s on the front, lower it, and go from there. Alright YouTube, while he moves away, let's take a look at what's going on with the van. We've got everything loosened up. Believe it or not, that steering tie rod in there in the pitman arm is been broken free. I just put the nut back on. These two have been broken free, and I've got them one full turn out. They will not break free, and the tool that I have to break them free is not wide enough. I have to grind on it for a little while, and I probably will end up doing that if I have to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to back the van down the driveway, turn it around. I don't know if you see that. I'm missing, and yes, it's loose and off. The track bar, I forgot to put the stupid washer in there on the bolt side, the bolt head side. The other side has a washer, a lock washer, and a nut in it, so it's being retained to some degree. But I want that bolt to come out so I can replace the washer. Well, it's wedged in there pretty good. So yes, I'm going to back the van up to the front or the back end of the Mountaineer. We'll get a ratchet strap around this wheel and kind of just give it a tug this way ever so slightly. I can hammer that out, but I don't want to damage the threads. That's how tight it is. But I need to get that bolt. Alright, so the ratchet strap trick has worked. I've got everything lined up. There's a ton of tension on that strap. And I slightly lifted the front wheel just to relieve the tension off the tire tread, and everything slid over, and I pulled the bolt. So now I just gotta put it back in. Easy peasy. Alright, so bolts back in with the washer. Everything's torqued down. This trick works if you need to center your axle, or if you need to pull your axle over in order to line things up. But she's all buttoned up. Basically what you do, ideally you should be into the hub, not out here where you're stressing outward pressure on the threads within your studs. But it was the easiest way for me not to have to take the wheel off. What you probably should do is take the wheel off and then attach it around the knuckle, around the backside of either the spring perch or something. But what you're trying to do is pull the axle one way or the other. and you just need an immovable object. Well, the truck's about as immovable as I'm going to get. I don't have any trees nearby, but you just run a ratchet strap. In this case, I ran it back to the nut off of this, and I just didn't want this slipping off because the teeth here aren't very in. Not a lot of grab there, so I didn't want them popping off. So I put the ball back in, put the nut on, and I got to take it apart real quick. Put the lock washer back underneath there, torque it down so I can tow with the Mountaineer again. But that was pretty easy going. It's a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be. But everything's lined up, and the torque arm is, I'm sorry, the track bar is in. I keep saying torque arm, I don't know why. That's the trailing, those arms that trail off the back that tie into the frame off the front of the axle that locate the axle. Those are your torque arms. And let's see here, I'll come around the side and show you those. Those bushings are going to get replaced, but I got to press them in and out. So I got to drop the torque arms for that. So these are your torque arms here. Got a lower and an upper. They run up and attach to the axle. At the spring perch is actually on one side, and then they've adapted the strut or shock mount. I keep saying strut, I mean shock, but I tend to use that term interchangeably. They are not the same. And yeah, so just basically remove the nuts off of one side, pop the bolt through, and then I'll drop these. I'll treat them for rust, you know, descale everything, sand it down to bare metal, treat it for rust like I did the frame rails for that right now. I just want to enjoy it for a few years and keep an eye on the rust, but stop it in its tracks now while I'm hitting components. So when I pull these arms off, I'll hit all the arms. I'm going to use a different rust protectant. That's just it's not even a rust protectant. I've got a rust sealer that you take it down to bare metal, then use the sealer. Anyways, just going through it piece by piece. Alright YouTube, so you can see steering components are out. The drag link off the pitman arm and the tie rod, that long tie rod across the front. Here are the replacements that are stock from Quigley. And I just need to take the collars, the joining collars off of these. That one and that one, and reuse them on these new rod ends. They're both the same. So I need to get those on there, get them threaded up, and get the steering wheel recentered because it wasn't, and then throw the collars on and get everything squared up. And then get it roughed in. It's not going to be exact, it's going to be off by quite a bit, but that's what the alignment shop's for. Alright guys, so I'm doing, I don't know what you'd refer to it as, a driveway alignment or a junkyard alignment. Basically, I've just got this board bungeed across the center of the wheel on both sides, so I can take a measurement from this end to the other end, and then take a measurement from that end to the other end, and check my toe in, and see how much I have to spread apart the adjustments on the tie rod. So the tie rod's connected, the new tie rod is in, everything's in, except for the sway bar. So new Quigley tie rod and drag link. Drag link is disconnected until we get the proper toe. Once we get the proper toe setting, I can't really do much with the camber and caster, just because of the bushing that goes into the top. That's how that's set as far as you know, the camber alignment. So I just need to make sure that these wheels are pointed straight and that they're towed properly, and then make adjustments here. And right now the front outer edge to the front outer edge over there, again, same data points or datum points here, pretty much sticks are level as I can get them across the center of the wheel. So same amount of top and bottom, as close to the center of the wheel as I can get it, as level as I can get it, and then I'm checking the measurement from there to the other side, and then from there to the other side. It's 83 1/8 in the back and 81 5/8 in the front, so it's towed in quite a bit. So I'm going to have to come over here and make the adjustment, and I'll get that set properly first, and then that will dictate my pitman arm length here to the drag link. So that's bolted in and torqued down, and the castle nut is pinned. And this side, I've roughly had it set because I went into the truck and I turned the steering wheel all the way from one turn to the other end and centered it. So that is dead center, believe it or not. It's just the way it's clocked. And I will stretch this to fit in there perfectly so that it's a nice tight fit into there, and the steering wheel is centered. So this truck, our van, has exactly 4 turns from one extreme to the other. So 2 turns, dead center. Yeah, then after all that's done, I can tighten up the steering linkage to the steering dampener. That goes from this bracket here to that bracket right there. And then it'll all be set up. I mean, roughly, pretty darn close. I don't think I'll need much of an alignment adjustment when I get it aligned. But this will get me pretty good ballpark. So, yeah, pretty simple concept. Got to go look up some specs and get her dialed in. And then, like I said, I'll reattach the drag link and should be good to go. After all that's done, I'll put the sway bar in. And I'm done. I'm done with the steering components, and the only thing left to do is to drop those torque arms and press out the bushings and press in the new poly bushings that I have for it, and that should keep things nice and tight. And this thing's going to steer beautifully and handle wonderfully on road, which is what I want. It's going to take me 90% of its time driving on the highway in order to get to its off-road locations, whether it's the beach or somewhere, you know, rock crawling in the mountains, whatever. I doubt I'll push it too far in those conditions, but on the beach, I mean, I gotta get there, right? And I'm 400 miles from the beach, so I'd rather it handle well on road and make that compromise with the 33s versus the 35s. And that involved basically re-Quigleying, if that's a term, take it back to Quigley specs. So anyways, I'm gonna go inside, look up some specs on, Quigley said look at the F250, 1993 F250 specs for light tow and all that. So one thing I did notice is that the track on the front is quite a bit different than the track in the rear. The front track, I think, exceeds the rear track by a good 2 inches. So I don't know what that means in terms of how it affects handling and whatnot, but yeah, we're getting there. Almost done with the front end. I've got the springs, like I said, I've got the springs coming. I already have the struts for the rear, but I got the springs coming, and I got the riser blocks. Because of the locating dowels on the rear risers, I can't just cut the risers. They're cast iron, so I very well could with a good bandsaw, but yeah, not going to do it. So because of those locating pins, I won't have that locating pin reference into the spring perch in the rear on the rear axle. All right, later.